come at it from that personal standpoint, and you're ultimately going to write something that will affect people because it has more of a universal connection.
What does inspire you to write screenplays? Where do your thoughts and ideas come from? What makes you decide you want to jump on something? Because it's a long process. You're dedicating, months, sometimes years of your life working on something like that.
I think that's probably an example of the most personal. But I also like, if I hear of, I like underdog stories, where the odds are stacked against, the person, and any real good screenplay would have, some element of that, I think, because that's the stronger the antagonist is, the more under the thumb they put the protagonist. They have to break that or be squashed. Right. So I think those are the kind of things that attract me to stories. Another one, like, for instance, shifting gears. A buddy of mine actually came to me. He had run a dirt car with some buddies for a while. He had worked in a garage for like 10 years, and he had just kind of kept this journal of kind of funny things that happened at the garage while he worked there. And this guy should have been born in the 50s, because he or should have been, because he he does classic cars, he restores classic cars, and he is that. He loves that generation. And all these things were like hand scrawled on notes, like hand scrawled, the stuff coming off ripped out of spiral binders, and all this stuff. So part of me at first, when he had a kind of a loose idea for a story, and I was like, well, all those pieces are there. And I just wanted to see how invested he was, and because I could barely read his writing, I was like, get these typed up and give them to me, and I'll pull from them. I'll read through them, and I'll go, okay, I'll use this one, try to figure out the best way to implement these kind of real life happenings. And he did it. He did it within, I don't know, a month or so. And then I wrote the first draft in a month. Again, it was that it was kind of this underdog story, this person that has grown up in this small town, and working for the man, and and decided to strike out on their own, and the kind of the ups and downs that come with that life, which is, again, pretty personal to me, because that's kind of how I have approached life. I remember in undergrad, I was in a show, and it was a Shakespeare show, and I guess they had rented some rapiers and some swords and stuff for the show, and the professor gave me this receipt and said, go over to the admin building and give this to so and so in the admin building. And so I walked across campus, and I walked into this room, opened the door, walked down this tiny little hallway, and this opened up into this room that was, I don't know, it looked like the size of a football field to me at the particular time. Right? And it was just fluorescent light and cubicles. And I was like, this is my hell. This is my hell. I don't ever want to do this. And I took, I delivered it and left with that kind of epiphany. And but again, being self-employed has its ups and downs, right? If you're working for someone and you know you can depend on a steady paycheck and insurance and all those things that come, that come along in life that you need, there's a payoff. I chose, the independent entrepreneurial direction and have just always governed my decisions based on that.
So the protagonist in Shifting Gears is basically just you, except
Pretty much.
except set against the backdrop of dirt
Dirt
track.
track racing.
Okay, no, that's one of the things that I often, when I look at anything, just about anything I've written, it's me, except on a horse farm. It's me, except,
Right, right. Well, that's one of the things, I think it's in Your Screenplay Sucks, where he talks about when you write a screenplay for you. Write a screenplay that's going to change you or affect you in some way, because it's most likely not ever going to get made. I mean,
something out of it, yeah.
Yeah, right. So come at it from that personal standpoint, and you're ultimately going to write something that will affect people because it has more of a universal connection,
Right.
because it's coming from a truthful place.
Yeah, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Amen.
yeah, that's one of the things that I push a lot is to, find something that you're super emotional about and delve into it. And I couldn't agree more with that ideology.
Yeah.